So if we're going to start to jump into some of the Mariners guys, like let's just start right at the top with Cole Young, who first off had an unreal spring in big league camp. Like he didn't look phased for the most part at all by big league pitching when he was in there. Like this is the number one prospect per pipeline, a guy that has a great hit tool, doesn't strike out much, walks a lot. Like, is it? I had maybe this is a fantasy, but I said if Cole Young has a huge year, assuming he starts in Double-A, there's an outside chance that if the Mariners are performing at the end of 2024, you could see him on the big league roster come like back end of September. Like, is that too aggressive, or is that about right?
I don't think it's too aggressive. I mean, I'd say that's more a possibility than a likelihood. But hitters hit, and Cole Young is just a pure hitter. I think he's going to hit everywhere he goes. And like, I think if he were called up, like, I think his bat to ball skills are advanced enough that he wouldn't be in over his head. I mean, I think the two questions we're still trying to figure out on Cole Young, and look, he's only 20 years old. He was drafted like less than 2 years ago out of high school. Is one, like, look, we know he can hit. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. And he's got solid speed. I think the questions with him are, one, how much power is it going to be? Are we talking 12 to 15? Are we talking 20 plus home runs per season? And then two, is he a shortstop or is he a second base? And I think the jury's still out on both of those. And I think that, obviously if we're talking that, he's the hitter he is, and he's a 20 home run guy, and he's a shortstop, then he's one of the best prospects in baseball. And if he's more of a 15 home run guy and he's a second baseman, I mean, he's still a very good hitter. He's still a very good prospect, but he wouldn't be like way up towards the top 100. So I think, and again, he's still 20. So he won't be 21 until the end of July. There's still time for him to develop and grow and get physically stronger. So I think we'll get more answers to those questions this year. But yeah, I do think the bat is gifted enough that, hey, if the Mariners were in contention and they had a need and he has the year I expect he'll have, then yeah, I could see him getting a shot in Seattle by the end of the year.
Has he filled out at the plate as expected when he was for his profile when he was drafted?
I guess. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't get to Peoria this spring, so I haven't seen I don't know what he looks like this spring. I mean, I don't think he's like 6 feet tall, 5'11", 6 feet tall. So I don't think we ever thought he was going to be like a 220 pounder. Like, if you look at him, I mean, just video from last year, he doesn't look skinny. I think he has put on some strength. I mean, I don't think he ever was going to be a slugger. It's just, but I mean, that's a question with all these guys, is exactly how much power like you can say the same thing. I'm not saying he's in the same boat as Jackson Holiday, but same thing with Jackson Holiday. Are we talking 20 homer power? Are we talking 30 homer power? Like, these guys are so young, you just don't have quite a feel for how much power they're going to have. Like, with most of these guys who are gifted young hitters, the power does come last. But then there's also guys like the cautionary tale. Like, I mean, this is going to take me back a few years, but Sean Burroughs, like, was a great pure hitter, and like the power never came, and he didn't have the big league career we thought he was going to have. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Cole Young. I'm just saying those are still the two questions on Cole Young is, how much power exactly are we talking about, and where's he going to play?
What gives him the nudge over Harry Ford at the number one spot? If you were to think of a reason.
Yeah, we have those guys like pretty close to each other in the top 100. I think we might even have them back to back, right? Like, I'm looking here. I don't have all the placements memorized. Yeah, we do have them back to back. We have Cole Young at 37 and Harry Ford at 38. So essentially, it's a coin flip. I think, and I don't do our Mariners list, so I don't set the exact order for all the Mariners prospects. I think you can make a case, obviously, for either guy when they're back to back. And I think the reason Cole Young probably has the edge is, like, what's the most important tool? The most important tool is hit. And not that Harry Ford can't hit, but just Cole Young. Cole Young is probably the best hitter in the Mariners organization and one of the best pure hitters in minor league baseball. Now, if you wanted to flip it and say, look, Harry Ford's a catcher and he can stay there and he's athletic. And I think, even though he's a catcher, I think he's probably a half step quicker than Cole Young. And he's got more power than Cole Young. And he has the tools to be a pretty good catcher. You can make that argument. I go back and forth. Like, to me, they're 1A and 1B. And it's just, that's more, what's your preference? Do you want to bet on the guy who you know is the better bat? Or do you want to bet on the guy who has more positional value and probably has a better power speed combination? Which, that said, the longer Harry Ford catches, it is going to eventually drain him of some of that speed.
Now,
but as we go with either guy.
Now, as we go to Harry, I think the one thing we think about with Harry Ford is when's the power going to come along. I think that because in the write up on MLB Pipeline, there's plus power in there, and Harry just had his best home run season at 15, but we're still waiting to really see the plus power from Harry Ford. Is that like on top of the checklist for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think with these guys, and you're drafting guys out of high school, you want to see the power develop. You're not like asking Harry Ford, "Hey Harry, we need to see 25 homers from you this year." I mean, I think he's got 25 homer potential. I think what you're looking for is progress, and we saw from 22 to 23, he went from 11 homers to 15 homers. I mean, the slugging percentage, I think, stayed, the isolated power stayed roughly the same. I think the step for him is, I mean, he draws a lot of walks, which is good. And I think, and again, we're talking about subtle adjustments here, is like, you like the patience, but you probably want to see him, he'll be 20, I guess he's 21 this season. He's still super young also. He's 21 this season. Like maybe looking to attack a little bit more that, like, yeah, it's good to work counts, but if you get like an early count fastball in your wheelhouse that you can drive, turn it loose, or you get a first pitch that that you can attack, don't be afraid to do that. Not that and I'm not suggesting anything wrong with his approach. He's still incredibly young, and I don't think you can overstate how difficult it is just when you're a young catcher coming out of high school, like just to polish as a catcher, and you're catching much better pitchers than you ever caught when you were in Georgia high school. And the demands of, catching 70, 80, 90, 100 games a year, like that takes a toll on your bat. So I actually think the fact that he walked 100 times last year and he hit 15 homers is very positive. I do think we'll see more power. It's going to be like the catchers take longer to develop. So I think reasonable expectation would be, maybe he hits 20 homers this year. And I think that would be a really good year for him, if he continues to progress with the other parts of his game.
So I remember we talked about this a little bit last year, but I do want to follow up on it a year later. I know you're not in the Mariners front office, but if you had to best guess, like, how do you think the Mariners will continue to manage Harry Ford and how much he catches? Because if they just let him catch all through the minors, which they very well might, at some point there's going to be some wall he run into with Cal Raleigh. So, like, do you think it's until he gets to the big leagues, they would wait to play him at other positions? Or do you think at any point they would start to move him around in the minors?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can I think it would be a poor idea to bring him to the big leagues and then say, okay, now you're an outfielder or something. Like if you're going to have him play other positions in the big leagues, you have to have him do some of that in the minors. I like Cal Raleigh, and Cal Raleigh's good. Like, I'll give you I'll play devil's advocate on Cal Raleigh. And look, he hit 57 homers last 2 years. But he's also a career 217 hitter with a 287 on base percentage, who's 26 years old. I don't think Harry Ford's going to be ready for a couple more years. By the time, let's say Harry Ford's ready, to be an everyday player in the big leagues. Like, it might be towards the end of 25. But realistically, we're talking about for a full season, 26. At that point, Cal Raleigh is going to be 29 years old. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear on him as a catcher. He's going to be I think a third-year arbitration guy, maybe a second-year arbitration guy. I might be off on that. But catchers age quickly. And again, I'm not saying Cal Raleigh, that's going to happen to Cal Raleigh, but by the time Harry Ford's ready in 2026, Cal Raleigh might not be the Cal Raleigh you saw in 2023, if that makes sense. So, catching is just a hard position. I don't think there's any plans to not have him develop as a catcher. I also would say, let's say he's ready to be a full-time catcher in 2026, and Cal Raleigh's still pretty good. Then there's nothing wrong with having, saving the wear and tear on both guys, and Cal Raleigh catches 80 games and Harry Ford catches 80 games, and they both play 40 games at DH or, first base for Cal Raleigh, or, the outfield maybe for Harry Ford. This isn't the days of Carlton Fisk where one guy's going to catch 130 games. So I don't even think if Cal Raleigh's still good, that's even an issue. You just would, they timeshare it a little bit. And then at some point, Cal Raleigh, I guess I'm looking at this, will be a free agent after the 27 season when he's 30, 31 years old, and maybe at that point, maybe they timeshare for a couple of years, and then you're like, 31's old for a catcher. We don't, who knows how he's going to play out over the next 3 or 4 years. but you don't want to invest a long-term contract in him, and then Harry Ford becomes the lion's share of the catching in 2028. So I don't think they're worrying about Cal Raleigh, getting in Harry Ford's way right now, and I don't think there's really any plans to develop him at a different position for now, at least in my understanding.
Moving on to one of the first of 3 first-round picks from this past year's draft, Jim, Colt Emerson feels like the guy with the most helium in this organization in the minor leagues. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, I think when you compare him to Cole Young, I think Cole Young's got a better chance to play shortstop than Colt Emerson. He's quicker. Colt might wind up at third base, but I think Colt Emerson, a year from now, as Colt Emerson plays more, or even by midseason, we might have an argument. Okay, who's the best pure hitter in the Mariners system? Is it Cole Young? It might be Colt Emerson. He's that good, and I think he's got more power than Cole Young. Yeah, I just think, I do think he has helium. I do think a lot of scouts talk about him. A lot of guys loved him in the draft last year. I mean, they took him with the 22nd pick. And, there was talk that he could even go a little bit higher than that. And I think he can really hit. I think there's going to be power in there. He's pretty athletic. I mean, it's more, baseball athleticism than stopwatch athleticism, if that makes sense. I think they're going to keep him in shortstop and see if that works for a while. He can maybe play second. I think there's a chance that he can maybe be 6'1", 210 when all is said and done, and just be a really good third baseman. But yeah, there's a lot of guys with helium in the system. I mean, there's a lot of guys talking about Lazaro Montes too. And, then you have guys some of the pitchers who are younger, and less experienced, like a Jeter Martinez and a Logan Evans. But I know we've talked internally, I don't have our top 100 rankings. Where do we have Colt Emerson on our list? Around 90 or so, I think. Does that sound right?
He's in the top 100. I know that.
Yeah, I know. This is terrible. There's 100 guys on the top 100 in my mind's fried from around
87.
He's 87. So, I think if we were putting together a list of top 5 players on the bottom half or bottom third of the top 100 who could rocket way up the list in 2024, he'd be one of them, because he can really hit. He's one of those guys. Every area scout I talked to loved that guy. Everybody saw that guy last year, loved him. And I think he flew under a little, he's from Ohio, whatever reason, flew under the radar a little bit, but I don't think that's going to last for too much longer. I agree with his healing. Cole Young and Harry Ford could have the seasons we expect. And it's not out of the question that by the end of 2025, that Colt Emerson, end of 2024, going into 25, that Colt Emerson's regarded as the best prospect in the system. He's got that kind of ceiling.
So what happened with him after the draft? Kind of in a positive way. I mean, I guess at least from your perspective and from people you've talked to internally, it sounds like a lot of people were very high on Cole Young. And look, the guy was a first rounder out of high school. Clearly he did a lot of things right. But it felt like, at least in some Mariners circles, that once he got down to Arizona after the draft and once he started playing in complex league games, it felt like all of a sudden, a switch was flipped with a lot of people saying, oh, this guy's upside is crazy.
I think it's more of a fan perception, really. I think everybody knew he was pretty talented. Like I said, everybody I talked to loved him. And I think it's just, we can debate how much Arizona League or Arizona Complex League numbers matter. He hit it was 8 games, but he hit 536 with a 14, 15 ops. And I think that it's dumb. It shouldn't work that way. But just those 8 games were so ridiculous that I think Mariners fans also are like, whoa, like years ago, Tuiasa Sopo did this probably 20 years ago in the Mariners system. And everybody's like, oh, this guy could be really good. And he was a big bonus guy. He was a guy who was going to play quarterback at the University of Washington. I think he got $2 million when that was easy first round money. And he didn't wind up being that kind of big league player. And I think Colt Emerson's a better prospect. He was more highly regarded coming out of the draft. But I do think the numbers were so insane. And then he hit 300 in low A. So he ends his pro debut hitting 374 with a 1045 ops. And he'd be the same player. But if he hit 274 with an 845 ops, I don't think he'd get as much hype in prospect media as he does. Which, again, I'm not saying that even makes sense, but I just think those numbers are so loud that it just opened, again, not scouts' eyes and not the Mariners' eyes. And, I'm not trying to act like I'm Mr. Know-It-All, but I do Ohio for the draft. And I knew Colt Emerson was really, really good. But I just think when the guy goes out, and even though it's like a 35 game debut and he puts up crazy numbers like that, it opens a lot of people's eyes. If he'd hit 274, like I said, with the 845 ops, I think people would be like, oh, Colt Emerson's a nice player. And again, I'm not even saying it makes sense, but I'm just saying, having covered this for 30 years, that's just the way it goes. Like when you have a first round pick and he goes out and puts up huge numbers, and like, granted, I mean, this is a high school player from Ohio. It wasn't like he was a big time name. He wasn't like in the College World Series. People didn't know who he was. I just think the performance really opened the eyes to what kind of player he is.